Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of The Suited Shootist. I'm going to jump right into this one because I want to keep it as brief as possible. Facebook conversations this week were around a comment that I've made about the fact that I'm trying to maintain a blue belt level of proficiency kind of at everything. I'm trying to stay as well-rounded a generalist as I possibly can. And I realized that I never really quantified that. So I figured I would do my best to attempt that here with a big old disclaimer that, you know, there is no hard and fast. A lot of this is going to be contextual to your lifestyle, your needs, and everything else. This is going to be very subjective, but I figure my goal here is to at least lay a framework, and it's not designed to be like step-by-step instructions by any stretch of the imagination. More kind of checkpoints to help guide your progression if you're trying to figure out where the efforts should be directed. So, it's kind of jumping into it. I've referenced before that I generally use kind of a competency diagram for this. It generally looks something like this, where it's that wagon wheel, and you've got the various spokes representing the different KSAs, knowledge, skill, and abilities, and you're going from the axle, which is kind of level 0 out, and as your skill increases, that section of the pie, expands. The goal, obviously, is to maintain as well-rounded a wheel as possible, because it makes for a smoother ride. So let's kind of break down a little bit, best I can, where I think this, where this falls. At the very entry level, the level 0, level 1, kind of your quote unquote white belt level, on the legal side of things, that's going to be whatever your state carry permit class is. Because, the shooting portion, if there is one, is really nothing more than a sobriety test. But at least there is a high level overview of the legal requirements and expectations that you have as a concealed carrier. On the pistol craft side of things, given that not all carry permit classes require a marksmanship qualification, probably something like a basic NRA pistol class, like a one-day type of thing, where it's not really getting into any major diagnostics of your shooting technique, but it is built much more around kind of safe and competent gun handling and the foundations of marksmanship. Moving then to the combatives side of thing, really that's probably going to be something like a half a day or a one-day self-defense seminar that's put on by like a local gym or maybe at the YMCA. Again, it's going to be a very high-level overview. It's not really going to be anything that equips you as a standalone, but is enough to kind of dip a toe in the water and familiarize yourself with some of the concepts of empty hand fighting. Medical, that's very likely going to be like a very simple Red Cross first aid type, type of course, where the basics of treating cuts and burns and things like that. Again, good skills to have because we typically encounter a whole lot more of those low level injuries than high level ones, hopefully. But again, that's kind of the entry level that we'd be looking at. On the social skills side of things, that's really just going to be kind of whatever your baseline is that you've got. Whether you be extrovert, whether you be introvert, whether you be ambivert, it's really going to simply be your default setting. And it's not good, it's not bad, it really doesn't matter. But at that point, you're kind of a one-trick pony. And if you find yourself in an uncomfortable or unfamiliar social setting, it's likely, you're going to be awkward. And so, the goal is to improve the social literacy to a point where, you can navigate it with a little bit more comfortability. The two segments of this that I'm not going to touch on are the relationship and the professional. Again, because everybody's circumstance is different. Now, of course, that applies to this as a whole, but those are the ones that are deeply, deeply personal. Because especially if you are self-employed or if you are a small business owner depending on the nature of your family dynamics and all of that, the purpose of them being represented on the wheel is to make sure that they're not lost sight of, because it is very easy, I've been guilty of it myself, of letting the important things fall by the wayside for the validation that a quantifiable and immediately gratifying segment offers. So it's there just kind of to ensure the holistic viewpoint. So where do we go from there? I'm not going to try and break this out into every single level, but you figure once you start getting into like level 3, level 4, that's when you start getting into the blue belt territory, as it were. And Cecil Birch actually reminded me that really this should be looked at as like a 2-stripe or white belt, blue belt, someone who has a little bit of time logged at that level, and they have a certain degree of competency and experience, which I think is valid. So on the pistol craft segment of that, that's, you've taken a couple of courses at that point, and, maybe you've started to dabble in competition shooting. You've gone to like a local club match or two, you're not necessarily ranked on practice score, but you are starting to expand the horizons of what you're capable of with a handgun. And that then kind of transitions again back to the combatives piece. And so for that, I would say at the blue belt level, you have at this point enrolled in a gym of some kind, be it jiu-jitsu, boxing, MMA, what have you. And again, you're getting exposure to another person trying to physically impose their will on you. You don't have to be good, you're just getting the experience. On the legal side of things, this is where there's kind of big jumps because there's not a ton of middle ground for that. Really, I think that Mag 20, the Masada Ayub Group lecture portion, really satisfies this bill. Now, if you want to take the full Mag 40, absolutely go for it. I will say that the main purpose, as I understood it, of the range segment of that class was so that there was a discoverable record of your shooting competency that Mas could actually testify to. Given the fact that we all carry TV studios around in our pocket these days, there's other ways to kind of develop that same discoverable evidence that doesn't necessarily demand the same time and financial investment. So if you're only going to take part of it, the lecture portion really is the main meat of that class. On the medical side of things, bare minimum, I would say stop the bleed. And realistically, I think it should be augmented by getting AED and CPR certified, because those two are really a lot more likely that you're going to encounter, especially in the continental U.S., than a traumatic hemorrhage to an extremity. So I've had conversations about this with Caleb Causey, actually, where tourniquets are useful, to be sure. But I think that GWAT has given us an artificial sense of exactly how important they are, because one of the main reasons that you see a high percentage of tourniquet applications in the global war on terror is because the trunk of the body is typically covered with armor. Now, again, I'm not a combat veteran. I can't say. I'm taking a loosely educated guess that if we had dudes kicking indoors doing all the same stuff without plate carriers, we may see a lot more application of things like chest seals and all this. So again, tourniquets are good, but they ain't everything. So that covers the pistol craft, that covers the combatives, that covers the legal, that covers the medical. On the verbal agility side, the social skill side, this is where, you might start doing something like Toastmasters or, professional networking, speed dating. That's another one that Craig actually recommends, just to kind of hone that skill of talking to strangers. Or, he's got a thing called Sport Muck, where I'll use myself as an example. A couple years back, my wife and I went to New Orleans on a vacation, and it was about 11:30 at night. I was a little hungry, and so I sent her back up to the hotel room. I walked down the block. There was a little fried chicken shack, and I walk in, just standing in line, and a couple of locals in and out, a few folks standing in line in front of me. I was the odd guy out for sure. And so the folks in front of me were kind of, looking me over, not eyeballing me, mean mugging me or anything, but, it was, I wasn't from around there. So we just start chatting it up. And, by the time we're all paying for our food, we're just bullshitting, laughing, and the best of friends. And I think that's a good indicator of, a competency, a level of proficiency in that interpersonal dynamic is, can you make a stranger laugh? So as it progresses then, how do you build out from there? Because, next level I would say is probably going to be like high purple belt, low brown belt. That's where on the pistol craft side of things, you're probably competing pretty seriously. You're very likely shooting A class ish, plus or minus, depending on the discipline and all of that. And this is the point where you're probably, we're probably running into each other at classes at that point. On the combative side of things, at this point, you've definitely taken either ECQC or immediate action combatives, or red beard, green ops, hill country. You've taken one of those higher intensity applied violence classes, and very likely are a fixture in one of the combat sports. On the legal side of things, there's really not a whole lot extra beyond what I talked about until you start getting to the very high levels. So, at this point, you're probably very well versed in Masad Ayub's writings as well, but I haven't really figured out where to fill the gap in on this part just yet. When it comes to the medical side of things, this is where, again, you have sought out formal training from somebody like Lone Star or Dark Angel, and you've actually gone through a formal course that addresses treating traumatic injury, whether it's something that is expressly geared towards concealed carry, or more kind of high level overview of the wider range of trauma. Either way, but that's definitely kind of where we're talking about on that front. When it comes to the interpersonal piece, and this is the one that I'm working on now, is once you're that high level purple, low level brown belt interpersonally, this is where you are able to have cordial and jovial interactions with people that you vehemently disagree with. And I think that that's critical, and it's one that gets overlooked quite a bit. Again, this is one that I'm guilty of. It is a skill that I continue to attempt to hone, but I think it is the mark of someone that has good both intellectual and emotional control. Are you able to engage with people that you're not necessarily philosophically aligned with? It's a good skill to have, because when you look at a lot of the folks that end up internet famous, a lot of it is over some kind of really trivial bullshit disagreement. And sometimes it might be politics, sometimes it might be a parking spot. It could be a myriad of things. But being able to not allow yourself to get emotionally triggered by someone that's getting up in your face and motherfucking you, it's a good skill to have. And honing that in good academic debate, I think is a good way to practice it. And then at that point you've got the black belt level, the outer rim of the wheel, as it were. And, so at that point, on the pistol side, you're probably shooting master, or if you put in a ton of work, grandmaster. On the combative side, you are, probably competing in your preferred combat sport, possibly ranked. And so that's kind of where you come in. And I just realized the one wedge that I haven't talked about yet, interestingly enough, is the one that I've been working on most recently, and that's the fitness one. I'm not surprised it slipped my mind because, frankly, I fucking hate it. But entry level, you probably have some kind of active hobby. You might play tennis with a friend, a pickup basketball game, kick the soccer ball around at the local park, but nothing real structured. At the blue belt level, that's when you are probably engaged in some kind of more structured and more quantifiable athletic endeavor. For me, I just started the starting strength program, so I'm a couple weeks into that. Or I've got a friend of mine who, for whatever reason, really likes doing Spartan runs and all that kind of stuff. So he's one of those self-abusive lunatics. But point being is that there is a dedicated and concerted effort on some kind of athletic endeavor. And the nice thing is for a long time for me, I basically dovetailed this into like jujitsu is what I was doing for exercise, so that I can kind of check two boxes at once, and it had the happy benefit of a functional side effect for personal protection. At like the purple brown belt level, that is again where you're probably using the starting strength tiers. You're probably like a level 3 of that. That's kind of where the what is it? Body weight bench, 1.5x squat, 2x deadlift metric sort of thing. Again, once you're at black belt, then it's going to very much depend on whatever discipline it is that you're pursuing. But on the fitness side, it would be like level 5 for starting strength. On the shooting side, it would be master or grandmaster level ranking in your preferred shooting discipline. On the legal side, that would probably be something like Masad Ayub's Deadly Force Instructor, or something like I'm blanking on the other one, Bill Lewinsky's organization. So that's kind of my thoughts on how this all shakes out. And I'd be interested to get your impressions as well, because like I said, this is a work in progress. And so what I'm going to do is in the description, I'm going to link to the wagon wheel diagram. So that way you have access to that. And I've actually got a document where I've kind of broken down the tiers of this a little bit more concisely. And I'm going to make that available to my patrons over on Patreon. So if that is something that you want, go ahead and head over there. It'll be available at the $5 tier or higher. And other than that, let me know your thoughts. I want to hear this. And if anybody has any other questions, put them down in the comments. Other than that, hope everybody has a fantastic week. Stay dangerous and stay sharp.